It's like all those other organizations that start off with such a rush and let on they're going to change the whole works. Pretty soon they peter out and everybody forgets all about 'em."
But if that's the fad now, don't you think you...
"No, I don't. Oh, Myra, please quit nagging me about it. I'm sick of hearing about the confounded GCL. I almost wish I'd joined them when Verge first came around. Got it over. Maybe I'd have come in today if the committee hadn't tried to bullyrag me. But by God, as long as I'm a free, born independent American
Now, George, you're talking exactly like the German furnace man.
Oh, I am I? Then I won't talk at all." He longed that evening to see Tanis Judique, to be strengthened by her sympathy. When the family were upstairs he got as far as telephoning to her apartment house, but he was agitated about it when the janitor answered. He blurted, "Never mind, I'll call later," and hung up the receiver. 5. If Babbitt had not been certain about Vergil Gunch's avoiding him, there could be little doubt about William Washington Eathorne next morning. When Babbitt was driving down to the office he overtook Eathorne's car, with the great banker sitting in anemic solemnity behind the chauffeur. Babbitt waved at him and cried, "Mornin'!" Eathorne looked at him deliberately, hesitated, and gave him a nod more contemptuous than a direct cut. Babbitt's partner and father-in-law came in at 10. "George, what's this I hear about some song and dance you gave Colonel Snow, about not wanting to join the GCL? What the dickens you trying to do? Wreck the firm? You don't suppose those big guns will stand for your bucking them and springing all this liberal poppycock you've been getting off lately, do you?" "Oh, rats, Henry T. You've been reading bum fiction. There ain't any such a thing as these plots to keep folks from being liberal. This is a free country. Man can do anything he wants to do." "Course, there ain't any plots. Who said they was? Only if folks got an idea you're scatterbrained and unstable, you don't suppose they'll want to do business with you, do you? One little rumor about your being a crank would do more to ruin this business than all the plots and stuff that these fool story writers could think up in a month of Sundays." That afternoon, when the old reliable Conrad Lighty, the merry miser, Conrad Lighty, appeared, and Babbitt suggested his buying a parcel of land in the new residential section of Dorchester, Lighty said hastily, too hastily, "No, no, don't want to go into anything new just now." A week later Babbitt learned through Henry Thompson that the officials of the Street Traction Company were planning another real estate coup, and that Sanders, Torrey, and Wing, not the Babbitt-Thompson Company, were to handle it for them. "I figure that Jake Offutt is kind of leery about the way folks are talking about you. Of course Jake is a rock-ribbed or old die-hard, and he probably advised the Traction fellows to get some other broker. George, you got to do something," trembled Thompson. And in a rush Babbitt agreed. All nonsense the way the people misjudged him, but still he determined to join the Good Citizens League the next time he was asked, and in a furious resignation he waited. He wasn't asked. They ignored him. He did not have the courage to go to the League and beg in, and he took refuge in a shaky boast that he had gotten away with bucking the whole city. Nobody could dictate to him how he was going to think and act. He was jarred as by nothing else when the paragon of stenographers, Miss McGowan, suddenly left him. Though her reasons were excellent, she needed a rest, her sister was sick, she might not do any more work for 6 months. He was uncomfortable with her successor, Miss Havstad. What Miss Havstad's given name was, no one in the office ever knew. It seemed improbable that she had a given name. A lover, a powder puff, or a digestion. She was so impersonal, this slight, pale, industrious Swede, that it was vulgar to think of her as going to an ordinary home to eat hash. She was a perfectly oiled and enameled machine, and she ought, each evening, to have been dusted off and shut in her desk, beside her too slim, too frail pencil points. She took dictation swiftly, her typing was perfect, but Babbitt became jumpy when he tried to work with her. She made him feel puffy, and at his best beloved daily jokes she looked gently inquiring. He longed for Miss McGowan's return, and thought of writing to her. Then he heard that Miss McGowan had, a week after leaving him, gone over to his dangerous competitors, Sanders, Torrey, and Wing. He was not merely annoyed, he was frightened. "Why'd you quit, then?" he worried. "Did she have a hunch my business is going on the rocks? And it was Sanders got the street traction deal. Rats sinking ship." Gray fear loomed always by him now. He watched Fritz Wellinger, the young salesman, and wondered if he, too, would leave. Daily he fancied slights. He noted that he was not asked to speak at the annual Chamber of Commerce dinner. When Orville Jones gave a large poker party and he was not invited, he was certain that he had been snubbed. He was afraid to go to lunch at the athletic club and afraid not to go. He believed that he was spied on, that when he left the table they whispered about him. Everywhere he heard the rustling whispers, in the offices of clients, in the bank when he made a deposit, in his own office, in his own home. Interminably he wondered what they were saying of him. All day long in imaginary conversations he caught them marveling. "Babbitt? Why, say, he's a regular anarchist. You got to admire the fellow for his nerve, the way he turned liberal, and, by golly, just absolutely runs his life to suit himself. But say, he's dangerous. That's what he is. And he's got to be shown up." He was so twitchy that when he rounded a corner and chanced on two acquaintances talking, whispering, his heart leaped, and he stalked by like an embarrassed schoolboy. When he saw his neighbors, Howard Littlefield and Orville Jones, together, he peered at them, went indoors to escape their spying, and was miserably certain that they had been whispering, plotting, whispering. Through all his fear ran defiance. He felt stubborn. Sometimes he decided that he had been a very devil of a fellow, as bold as Seneca Doane. Sometimes he planned to call on Doane and tell him what a revolutionist he was. He never got beyond the planning. But just as often, when he heard the soft whispers enveloping him, he wailed, "Good Lord, what have I done? Just played with a bunch and called down Clara's drum about being such a high and mighty sodger. Never catch me criticizing people and trying to make them accept my ideas." He could not stand the strain. Before long he admitted that he would like to flee back to the security of conformity, provided there was a decent and credible way to return. But stubbornly he would not be forced back. He would not, he swore, eat dirt. Only in spirited engagements with his wife did these turbulent fears rise to the surface. She complained that he seemed nervous, that she couldn't understand why he did not want to drop in at the Littlefields for the evening. He tried, but he could not express to her the nebulous facts of his rebellion and punishment. And, with Paul and Tanis lost, he had no one to whom he could talk. "Good Lord, Tinka is the only real friend I have these days." He sighed, and he clung to the child, played floor games with her all evening. He considered going to see Paul in prison, but though he had a pale, curt note from him every week, he thought of Paul as dead. It was Tanis for whom he was longing. "I thought I was so smart and independent, cutting Tanis out, and I need her. Lord, how I need her," he raged. "Myra simply can't understand. All she sees in life is getting along by being just like other folks. But Tanis, she'd tell me I was all right." Then he broke, and one evening late he did run to Tanis. He had not dared to hope for it, but she was in, and alone. Only she wasn't Tanis. She was a courteous, bow-lifting, ice-armored woman who looked like Tanis. She said, "Yes, George? What is it?" in even and uninterested tones, and he crept away, whipped. His first comfort was from Ted and Eunice Littlefield. They danced in one evening when Ted was home from the university, and Ted chuckled, "What's this I hear from Eunie, Dad? She says her dad says you raised Cain by boosting old Seneca Doane. Hot dog, give 'em fits, stir 'em up. This old burg is asleep." Eunice plumped down on Babbitt's lap, kissed him, nestled her bobbed hair against his chin, and crowed, "I think you're lots nicer than Howard. Why is it," confidentially, "that Howard is such an old grouch? The man is a good heart, and honestly, he's awfully bright, but he never will learn to step on the gas, after all the training I've given him. Don't you think we could do something with him, dearest?" "Why, Eunice, "That isn't a nice way to speak of your papa," Babbitt observed in the best floral